One.
Good evening, everyone. Adequate notice of this meeting was provided by sending such notice to the Asbury Park Press, the Middletown Patch, and the Middletown Township Public School District website, and the posting of such notice at the August T. Minor Administrative offices in each elementary, middle, and secondary school in the district. Roll call.
Mrs. Cavanetti?
She's here.
Here, she's here, flag.
No, flag.
What you say, the flag, they never look. Thank you.
Roll call, Mrs. Cavanetti?
Here.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Here.
Mrs. Minutis? Here. Mrs. Golaski?
Here.
Mr. Summers?
Here.
Mr. Toth?
Here.
Mrs. Wright?
Here.
Mrs. Tobacco? Here. Mr. Capone?
Here. Please stand for the pledge.
The United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're now going to open up the microphone for public comment. We don't need to unless there's something you want to speak about. Anything you need to speak about? We can do contract negotiations. I know if there's anything that a board member needs to speak about in executive.
Okay, so I was under the impression we had exec session and then we were.
If you want to make a motion, we can go into executive session.
I think that's a function of the program you use for your agenda, automatically puts that on. But there was no, as far as I know, there was no planned executive session. It was just a.
Everybody good? Once again, we're going to open the microphone up for public comment. If you wish to make a public comment, please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
So, because of the fact that because of the executive session at 7 and then at public 7:30, I think a lot of people here will be at 7:30. Yeah, because it did say executive session. Yeah, right. So it's not actually, yeah.
Oh, here, yeah. I would make a motion that we delay until 7:30.
I'm in favor.
Hey, everybody good?
How about recess until Sunday? Okay. Seems like there's consensus.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, before we get to public comment, I'm just going to pass the microphone to Mr. Doherty to speak about an agenda item that we just added. It's for number 7. Ms. Doherty, you can speak about it.
Thank you, Mr. Capone. We are going to be having on the agenda tonight a resolution to approve the acceptance of a proposal from our stop loss insurer for the policy that would be in effect July 1st, 2025 from Zurich American Insurance Company, accepting their proposal as a stop loss carrier for their medical and prescription drug plans per the proposal that was submitted. We're putting it on the agenda because of the due date of the renewal is before our next board meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Doherty. Okay, now we're now going to open the microphone up for public comment. If anyone wishes to make a comment, please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hi everyone, Kristen Mooney, 1 Oakdale Run, Atlantic Highlands. I don't think I've ever given you that one before. I just wanted to start by saying thank you. I think we've come a long way since March 18th, and we asked for transparency and communication that day and to be part of the conversation of what Middletown is going to look like and our schools going forward. And I think this is a step in that direction. And we're looking forward to a resolution now and in the future, continuing to be a part of this. So I'll hand it over to others who have more things to say than I do, but thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dan Lazan, 39 Farview. Hi, I'm Bernard Doss, 44 Oneida Avenue. So, I think we're here to talk about yet another tax increase or tax adjustment. I think there was, going back to the drawing board as requested from what I've heard, is that we need to reassess what our tax levy is going to be for this next year. And digging into kind of the numbers and what I've been seeing, right? I'm part of the budget and data group. And historically, what I've been looking at and seeing is missed opportunities of tax increases as a drip feed, right? It's slowly increasing year over year, which also has an exponential increase on your actual operating budget. You miss it one year, you don't recoup it by the same value next year. So I think what we've seen and what we've calculated out is if we had about an average of a 3% increase over the last 10 years or even 6 years, is we would have had a much better solvency situation. We wouldn't have depleted our reserves. We would have enough budget to operate at the ask today. And I'm still digging into the requirements from the state for adequacy. And I think part of that also is penalized because we are below where our adequacy should be. So we are being punished, which also adds to our deficit. So by keeping our taxes artificially low, if you look at inflation, in the last 6 years, we've only had increases of anywhere from 1% to 3%. Inflation has gone as high as 7%. You cannot operate by being 4% under inflation. So I think one of the things that we need to do and take away from this is we shouldn't be faced with this 10% increase because there is a precipice that we're on because of mismanagement or missed opportunities over the last 10 years. I think that's something that is very clearly stated or seen when you look at the numbers, but I know when you're trying to present it to Middletown and to everybody out in the general public, it's hard to say, we need to increase your taxes a little bit every year, but that's a lot easier pill to swallow than a really big pill in 1 year.
So property tax calculations are tricky and interrelated with a lot of factors, but in good faith, I'm going to try and represent the best, and based on the best data available. The max budget increase that this board has an opportunity to go to would be a shock. but it nets out to an effective 6% property tax increase, assuming the other municipal increases stay the same. So, and this is in a year where we found that, home values are going to be reappraised for 11% more. So essentially, what the max budget increase that you could actually, deploy would still decrease the tax rate. Because basically, home values are outpacing the tax or budget increases that are available to you, right? So no matter what, even if you maximize the budget, you're still compressing the tax rate. So I think that's important to get across. And if anybody wants to chat after the meeting, we can kind of dive into those numbers. Again, on the best available information, Tony Perry floated the 5.8%, and 10.1 has been, a budget increase of 10.1. That would cost, that jump from, like, let's just say 5 to 10 would cost the average Middletown homeowner about $294 a year. So going from a 5% increase on this school budget to a 10% increase on this school budget is real dollars for every household in Middletown, which we're sensitive to. But going back to Dan's point, if we had just raised taxes 3% incrementally going back even 5 years, we wouldn't be in this situation. So with the maximum budget increase that is available to you today, I'm optimistic that, state funding can start to match with adequacy, and you might be on a path towards normalcy without holding schools, in closures hostage here. So, my plea is to just, let's stop making the same mistakes. We have an opportunity here to get things on track for real, and I hope that the board can do that. All right, thank you.
Hi, Julie Armstrong at 206 Walnut Street. So we are in a position where our district is bleeding out. No matter what got us here, the decisions, the missteps, we are now at the point where we need to stop the bleeding. And we've been handed a tourniquet in the form of a proposed tax levy. And right now, it appears to be the only concrete solution on the table to keep our school district alive. And we need to be clear that this levy is not a cure. It's not healing the wound. It's just stopping us from immediately losing more staff, more programs, more students, and more trust. But once you apply a tourniquet, you don't walk away and say, job done. You act fast, carefully, and strategically to address what caused the injury in the first place. And that's where we need to go next. So let's ask the real questions. What happens after the levy? What is our plan to make this district financially sustainable long-term? Are there additional cuts planned? If so, to what? To programs, to people, to schools? And most importantly, how will we protect what matters most? The quality of education and the strength of our community. The answer has to be strategy, not just emergency measures. We need a forward-looking plan, one that builds a stronger foundation. And this means full transparency, means real, meaningful community involvement. And by that, I mean true representation. Parents, educators from every school in the district. Senior citizens who've shown up and spoken out. New families who are just joining our community, in addition to legacy families who've built their lives here. We need the taxpayers representing what they want, which is both excellent schools and responsible spending. And we want seats at the table, not just for final decisions, but for the process, the data analysis, the RFPs, the walkthroughs, the tough trade-offs. We are an engaged, informed, and passionate community. Let's use that. Invite us in. Let's build a real plan, one rooted in smart budgeting, efficient operations, and a shared commitment to our kids and their future. The levy buys us time, but what we do with that time is up to us. Let's make sure we use it wisely.
Joanne Alties, Thousand Oaks Drive, Atlantic Highlands. Hello, my name is Joanne Alties. I'm the mother of a third grader at Mavis Inc. Elementary and the treasurer for fundraising for Save Our Schools. When my ex-husband and I were trying to decide where to raise our daughter, we agreed on Monmouth County. We both grew up here, but in different towns. He constantly praised his education from Bayshore Middle School and convinced me Middletown schools were the way to go. But I did not agree easily or quietly. Do you know how annoying it is to tell your ex-husband who's right? I do. And that is exactly what happened after only a few months at Navesink. This school quickly became our village, our community, and it truly feels like home. So we want to do everything we can to keep our community alive. As I said earlier, I'm treasurer of Save Our Schools, but I've also been an operations professional for over 10 years, managing budgets of over $100 million. That being said, budget transparency is not hard. The lack of transparency and the level of difficulty to get answers from this board is concerning. Please work with us and be transparent about how much money is needed. With us and be transparent about how much money is needed under each proposed plan and where we can help fill the gaps. You have a motivated, passionate, and hard-working community ready to do the work to keep our schools open. In only a few weeks, Save Our Schools mobilized and put together multiple events, showed up to every forum, held a rally, basically made a clothing line, and raised all of the funds and more to bring visibility to what has been happening to Middletown. Don't even get me started on how much our individual PTAs fundraise every year. Imagine what we could do together as a community with a long-term, thought-out fundraising plan to help bridge the gap to what the district receives in funding and what is actually needed. We've already had conversations with Rumson and Fairhaven about their gap funds and can get this up and running quickly and work with you to raise money to provide for our schools. There are also opportunities for grants that can take on some of the costs for maintaining and improving our buildings. Let's start a grant committee focused on finding money for our schools. For example, Navesink is eligible for a grant from the New Jersey Historic Preservation Trust for capital improvements such as roof repair, ADA accessibility, HVAC, electrical upgrades, and more. I urge you to use the resources you have. The people in this room, so we aren't standing in these same positions this time next year. Thank you.
Josh Greeley, 305 Park Avenue, Navesink. As discussed, this budget shortfall has been known and projected for the last 5 years. We have not kept up with inflation during our budgeting process. Cutting programs, downsizing staff, closing our beloved schools cannot be and should not be the only solution to this shortfall. Why has no one on this board or administration moved for a referendum to raise the portion of our property taxes that go to schools to be more in line with similarly situated towns in Monmouth County? Putting forth a referendum to properly allocate funds across all of Middletown will help to create a sustainable future for a better Middletown where our kids are supported, educated, and kept safe. The referendum will allow the good-natured conversations to continue and will work in tandem with a factual and data-driven strategic planning. A referendum will provide a runway to create sustainable success and can be a plan that all of Middletown can get behind if it's brought into the long-term strategic planning procedure. Thank you very much.
Mr. Bustler, 22 Middletown Avenue. So I had what is fair to call a screed prepared for this meeting. To talk about things like arrogance, deception, contempt for transparency and for proper communication, about the costly and embarrassing politicization of our school board by people who clearly only have eyes for higher office. And of course, about the years of financial negligence. But since I wrote that screed, the incredible groundswell of community activism and engagement, and frankly, a whole lot of damning press coverage has had an effect. We now have some reason to believe that this board, you, will change course and will not close our top-rated schools at the end of this year, will not overcrowd our middle schools next year, will not rip the hearts from our local communities, and will not decimate the ranks of our teachers. But the current proposal of a 5.88% school levy increase, which is about a 3.6% overall tax hike for the town, a property sale and a non-teaching staff cut, is not enough, as others have pointed out, to address the root cause that brought us to this place. The simple fact is that Middletown hasn't been putting enough money towards its schools. This is well known. For many years, we've been raising our school levies slower than the rate of inflation, and in some years, not even at the automatically approved 2%. This is made for good headlines and easy votes for you all and for us not having to vote. But it also means that we've been slowly, surely starving our school district. Tens of millions of dollars in potential school funding has been left on the table, has been lost as a result. Our reserves have been drained, our buffers are gone. Part of the problem, too, is that the tax split, as Josh pointed out, between our town and our schools is, we're decidedly below average as compared to our economic peers in the county and how much of our overall taxes we put towards our school system. And I concur, I think a referendum on that is absolutely in order. So even if the board shortly approves the proposed 5.88% levy increase, our school levy will still be 7.5% lower than if it had simply kept pace with inflation since the 2019-2020 year. So that is $13 million lower in real spending power than we gave our schools in 2019-2020. And we will face a dire situation next year once again. Now, in just 3 weeks, many of my fellow townsfolk have already come up with novel and creative ways to reduce expenses and increase revenue, and I have no doubt that we will discover even more across this coming year. But this may not be enough. To set our school system back on the path of financial stability and sustainability, the prudent move would instead be to take advantage of the singular opportunity that we have this year, according to the recently discovered state opportunities that Superintendent Alphone communicated to us, and raise the levy 10.1%, or about 6% overall tax increase. Even this hike would not put our school budget back to the level it was in the 2019-2020 year in terms of real dollars. But it would be far better than this half measure that you are considering today. Ultimately, it comes down to a question of what sort of town we want to live in. A town with mediocre and slowly diminishing schools, or a town with schools of the caliber and excellence that we can most certainly afford, and which our children deserve. On a separate note, I'd like the board to address the issue of why the township is, at least according to the data that I saw reported in the newspapers, why the township is preparing to pay just 1/3 per acre to our school district than it agreed to pay for the Mater Dei property. Did we get impartial appraisals for these properties? Did we get second opinions? I know they're not exactly equal, but that gap is profound, and I would love some answers on that in the interest of transparency.
Would anybody else wish to make a public comment?
My name's Eric Dowell, 2 Maxon Avenue. The post office says I live in Rumson, but I don't. I live in Edison. I'd just like to reiterate Kristen Rooney's comments at the beginning. Thank you. We saw a community speak and we saw our elected representatives listen, and that doesn't always happen. That's really meaningful. We've come a long way in a few weeks. I'm not a numbers person, but clearly some of my colleagues are, and I listen to them. Best we can tell, we do not have a spending problem in this district. We can nibble around the edges, we can quibble with things like scoreboards, but fundamentally we have a revenue problem, and it's one that's built up over time. the tax levy increase averaged something like 1.89% from 2011 through 2023. And in 2024, it wasn't much higher. And as I understand it, teachers in this district are contractually entitled to a 3% annual raise. So again, we don't have a spending problem, we have a revenue problem. We also have an opportunity. This state benefit, if we want to call it that, it doesn't sound like it's guaranteed to be available next year. So you have an opportunity to remedy, with the benefit of hindsight, what we see was historic undertaxation, and catch up. And more importantly, gain some flexibility in the years to come. So we're not all back here next year with a new hole. The opportunity to get a runway as a district. The opportunity to have meaningful conversations, to get community steering committees up and running in consultation with the board and the administration. The opportunity to think meaningfully about referendums, to really finance what needs to happen with respect to our secondary schools. The opportunity for these community fundraising efforts to get really ramped up. And you've heard, we've already gotten a fresh start. So it's rare that you're going to have a bunch of homeowners say, please tax us more. But what we're saying is please take advantage of this opportunity that presents itself this year to put this budget hole, not only close it, but level set us and give us that multi-year runway. It's something that I think the community, and I suspect many folks up on the stage, would really appreciate. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Erin Torres. I live at 170 Grand. I'm the lady with the baby. The baby's sleeping. I wanted to just really quickly say, obviously I'm a mom, I'm a teacher. My daughter's in kindergarten, and I really got to know Davis Inc. in the community because I was on maternity leave for the first half of the year. And one of the things I got to do was to go into the school for one of the activities. And I heard two teachers that didn't know me, and they were in the hallway talking. And there were two things that they said, one about a fifth grader, and they had an idea for the whole fifth grade and talked about an exciting thing that they could do with them to talk about the things they missed in kindergarten during COVID. The second thing they did was talk about PD, something that they had learned in a class the night before, and they were going to go to a meeting, and I was so ready to present this to my colleagues, and I was like, oh my God, these people love their job. It was so refreshing, and I went home and I was talking to my husband, and I said, we're really lucky that we're here. I said, these people love their job. We're talking about money, we're talking about salaries, we're talking about benefits. And yes, our salaries are contracted, and yes, they're open to a certain amount. Benefits are going up, we have no control of that. They're going to go up more because of COVID, because of inflation, because of everything else going on in this state and in this country. But we need to really tap into our staff. They know our buildings, they know our kids, they know our community, and we rely on them, and we support you, and we hope that you do what you can, and that you support them in supporting us. Thank you.
Would anyone else wish to make a public comment? Seeing no one else coming forward, I wish to close the public comment. Oh, sure.
Hi, spur of the moment. Devin Rafferty of Leonardo. I think we've all pretty much had a crash course in this, but to the extent that we haven't, maybe we should just do like a little wonkish how school budgeting actually operates. Your budget has to come up with something known as an adequate budget. The way you do that is you calculate a baseline figure, basically what it's going to cost for each student to be educated. You weight that by middle school or high school, etc., right? You add it all up, that's the cost of actually educating the district. You call that an adequate budget, am I correct? Okay. Now, What then gets split up is the local fair share, which is what the town can provide. If I'm not mistaken, the median income, the median, middle number, of Middletown is $141,000 a year. Hooray! We're a rich town. Our property values, on average, I believe, are $765,000. Good! Okay. Now, when it comes to our local fair share, what I seem to understand looking through reams of spreadsheets and data and find out is that we don't actually provide our local fair share that is in line with what we can provide. The two things that go into determining your local fair share contribution is your income level and your home values. That gets divided by 2, the local fair share comes out, okay? The rest of that is then filled by the state with equalization aid. Basically, this year we got called out by the state for saying you're a rich community with high property values, and historically you haven't actually funded your school system at a basic adequate level. The whole thing with Newark getting aid, come on, that's race baiting, let's grow up, okay? Right, if you want to talk about equalization aid, we'll move to Newark, okay? So, which obviously has much higher levels of much higher rates of poverty, et cetera, okay. So, where does that leave us? Well, sure, we could worry about a one-time increase and fill a gap or something like that, but at the end of the day, I have bad news for you. You have been defunding, effectively, your school system for a very long time. It is up to us, collectively, as a community, to get ourselves out of it by funding our local fair share. And I'm sorry, this is a TINA. Eventually, there is no alternative to that. It will have to happen, okay? We can afford it. We should. In line with that, seem to be having this debate of 5.88% versus 10.1% versus, okay. If it's my understanding, the Board of Education's job is to provide an excellent education, administratively and financially, for the students of this district. I can't imagine if somebody said to me, hey, Devin, you have the opportunity to get a 3% increase, or a 10% increase, or a 5%. And then you sign off and say, yep, I'll go with the lower one, right? I mean, that's effectively what you would be doing by not voting for the max. It would make no financial sense whatsoever. And as I broke down in the last meeting, it's effectively the cost of 2 appetizers at the Outback per month to the average home. So I guess in closing, I don't particularly know what's on the agenda for tonight necessarily, but the fact that we are actually talking about maybe not going for the max and adequately funding the local fair share, which we will have to do at some point, no matter what, is economically ludicrous. The speaker podium is over here. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Melissa Montclair, 168 Mount Avenue. I wanted to thank you all. I did not speak at any of the other meetings because we have so many really dedicated people who are digging in and looking at everything that's going on and making alternative suggestions. And I wanted to thank you because I feel like I've been asleep for a little while since I moved to Middletown. I spent a lot of time in another district, actually meeting some of you there and having a lot of passionate discussions and a lot of, difficult discussions. And when I moved to Middletown, I felt like you know, I can relax. Everybody is in good hands, this is a great community. You know, we can kind of just sort of pull back and enjoy life. And I feel like that was a little bit of a mistake. Because clearly, while we're, you know, enjoying our homes and our schools and our communities, there are things that are happening, you know, that we're not really aware of, or that we're not being made aware of. So I wanted to be really clear that throughout all of this discussion today, in terms of your ability to raise taxes and our willingness to engage in that conversation, at the same time, I feel like I, at least personally, will be watching really closely. Every single move. We're not going to be asleep. We're going to be in every meeting, and we're going to be digging into the activities, the contracts, the deals, and whatever else is going on. Because if we're going to say, yes, tax us more, I want to know exactly where that money is going. The time it is going to be for you to acknowledge what you guys have been doing. So this isn't just because today, you know, there's going to be a positive vote and we're all just going to go home on our merry way. I think this is going to be a very long relationship. Thank you.
Hi, Vera Paseki, Ashar Drive. I'm not one to like to get taxed more, but I would like to propose that as we go through this process, we look at amending policy, I believe it's 5117, assignment of students in attendance areas. I think that needs to be an operational decision of the administration. The board can certainly put parameters around it. For example, the board can approve if it ends up requiring a school to be closed. But I think we are getting hampered by not being able to do little things like put some relief or give New Monmouth relief because of the weird zoning that we gave Port Monmouth. And I think that the administration needs to be able to manage that. Also, having gone through this in 2014, 2019, and now here we go again, what tends to happen is school class sizes seem to increase in certain schools that have more classes. So the smaller schools like Navesink, which is beautiful, I would have loved for my kids to have gone to a school like Navesink. When you only have 2 classes, it's very hard to combine and to cut things. So I really think that we need to look at this policy, and we need to make sure that that the administration can work effectively with it so that we can make sure that the class sizes are fair across the district as we move forward. Thank you.
Laura Act, 16 Wonderful Boulevard. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I just kind of want to echo what Vera had just said. I feel like this is becoming a very north versus south debate, and as a parent of children who go to Nut Swamp and Thompson, I don't feel like there is equitable education being given to the students. My son is at Thompson with over 900 kids. He has classes with 27 and 30. He's got 30 in his social studies class and 27 in his social studies class. He's never been in a class of less than 23 people since kindergarten. My daughter is now in Nut Swamp. She has usually about 22 in her class. And while I appreciate, what everyone's here, I think really what the big issue is the surprise of this, the lack of planning and transparency of this. I think this is a bigger issue, and, I hear how much these people love their schools, how much they love Navigate, how much they love Bayshore. We don't have that sense of community on the other side of town, where everyone thinks, you get so much more. And I'm really getting frustrated hearing that, because I'm going to see my taxes raised by 10%. What are my kids getting?
More kids. That's what they're getting. More kids.
So my taxes are going up 10%, my kids are going to have more kids.
If they don't, Thompson's gonna have more kids if they don't go up.
I understand that, but my kids have 960 kids in their school, and they have classes with 30 and 27. What I'm saying is that we need to come up with an idea that works for all in Middletown. I should have moved to Navigate, and I should have sent my kids to Bayshore. There was a girl who talks about how she did the transfer program between Bayshore and Thompson, and how overwhelmed and scared she was to be in Thompson. That's where my kids are every day. So I just think it's really important that we come up with a solution that is equitable for all of Middletown. The class sizes in Thompson aren't going to go down whether or not, whatever decision gets made tonight, class sizes in Thompson, they're not changing. My kids are going to have 30 kids in their classes regardless. So I just really hope that we need to come together as a community, right? And there needs to be equitable education for all of our students. Thompson has been an issue for years. Why does Thompson have 960 kids and there's less than 600 at Bayshore and Thorne? How is that equitable? Why does my kid have to, there's not enough room in the cafeteria? The kids are bumping into each other in the hallways. I feel for everybody. This stinks. Nobody wants to be in this situation. But I really think you need to think about all of Middletown and not just a small part of it. We are all taxpayers. And if we're going to increase our taxes 10%, I want to know, how is that benefiting my kids and 75%, 80% of Middletown? I feel for everyone here, but we have to think about everyone. We have to think about everyone. And I think that, I understand that we're saying the 5.8% is a Band-Aid, and I agree that it is, but I think that we've been Band-Aiding. Let's take that. I think and then we will come together, come up with a strategic plan, which we should have done 10 years ago. I remember sitting when we dropped the ball, we were going to redistrict. And let's come up with a plan that works for every one of the 8,500 students in this town. I want the best for everyone in this town, but the reason you don't have more people from Thompson and all the other schools is because of the backlash, and it's not fair. So let's come up with a solution that works for everyone. We can come up with a strategic plan. There's going to be changes. I hate change. I hate change more than anyone. But you know what? It has to happen, and it should have happened 12 years ago. I remember sitting in this auditorium probably at least 10 years ago when they were talking about redistricting, and everyone freaked out, and we pushed the can down the road. Now we're in between a rock and a hard place. But honestly, I really struggle with the 10%. I really do, because I don't see how my kids and how 80% of this town is going to benefit from it. I think we need to fix this year, Band-Aid this year, and I think we can come up with a strategic plan. There's gonna be major changes. It's not realistic, guys. They're gonna keep 11 elementary schools open long term. I'm telling you, it's not. It's not gonna happen. So once you increase taxes, they're never going to come down. And I'm speaking for the seniors in this town that don't have the disposable income. I know some people talk about, oh, cheap appetizers at hooligans, but you know what? Our taxes are going up, electricity in this state is going up, and I think we need to be mindful. Like we as a board need to be mindful of everyone in the town. If there's a way to fix this year and then come up with a plan for next year, it's without a doubt, something's gonna change. It should have changed 10 years ago, drastically. We're too big of a school to be operating without synergies and shared services. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. So I know that's not the popular opinion, but it's how I feel. And my kids are being affected in a negative way.
Hi, I'm Catherine Etter, 144 Chestnut, Navesink. I want to respond, since you all clearly are not responding to anything that's been said tonight. I want to respond to the woman that just spoke and say that, number one, we hear you. We wish that this movement had more representation from other parts of Middletown. We want something that works for all of Middletown as well. I think yes, there was a problem with the lack of transparency, and yes, a lot of people feel emotionally connected to their schools. My kids are little, they're not in school yet, so I can't speak. I've heard wonderful stories about Netswamp, about Navesink, about Thompson. I hear you on the overcrowding. But when I started to hear that we were going to close these schools and take what you just aptly described as a very overcrowded middle school and shove even more kids in it, that my kids had to travel half their time. Totally agree. Yes, yes. I think we're on the same page. But I also hear what some of the folks involved are saying. I work in human resources, I am not an economist, but fortunately we have some of them here. If we have been effectively defunding our school system for years and years and years, it's coming for you too. It's not something that is to keep one tiny school open, right? There's an increase to get our school back on budget and on track with inflation. Step 2 of that is absolutely a strategic plan that needs to have the involvement of the entire community, because I think it's clear. And I think, you know, to tie things together with what was said earlier, we're going to be watching. I don't understand, I think like logically, it's hard for me to wrap my head around how some of these decisions or lack thereof have been made. So either there's somebody getting an incentive somewhere that we don't know about and we're gonna have eyes on, or it's chasing a political career who don't wanna be the person that says you raise taxes. Look at our peers, look at the rest of Monmouth County, and get our school system back where it needs to be. Nobody is saying raise it 10%, just keep Navesink open. But if raising it 10% is gonna get us on, and Leonardo, you're absolutely right, I'm sorry. Leonardo, if it's going to get us back on track with where we should be based on the rest of Monmouth County, based on the rest of the state, based on the rest of the country, you can't go on forever just being the guys that don't raise taxes. It's going to catch up with you eventually. And unfortunately, we're here on the precipice of a recession trying to figure it out. So I don't know what the solution is, but it needs to be a strategic plan. It needs to involve everybody, including the senior citizens that don't have kids in the school system. But you make no attempt thus far to have that conversation authentically and thoroughly, and that's what we'd like to see as a next step. Thank you.
Hi everyone, Gosha Shugala, 308 Park Avenue. Just a quick clarification about the issue. Main issue is capacity. As we proved, the capacity numbers are actually very different from what was presented. We cannot afford to sell food. And I completely agree. We have to actually increase our building capacity. So strategic planning is the main goal for the future. If Thompson is overcrowded, maybe that's where we need to build an addition. Why currently someone said, okay, Thompson has 900 something students versus Bayshore on Thorn left. The main reason is actually special education kids. Capacity numbers, that's why they differ. Thompson has 0 self-contained special education kids. We can compare apples to oranges. When we're comparing numbers, we need to look at overall. Everyone needs to be involved. Regular kids, I don't care if they go to Thompson, to Bayshore, there are special education kids at Bayshore and Thorn. We need to include everyone in making strategic planning. So if Thompson is overcrowded, in 3 years our bonds roll off. Let's actually plan ahead and actually maybe do an addition. Because the numbers that you provided that you're willing to spend 750 million, that's just bogus numbers. Then if we build a new municipal building, brand new, scratch, huge, half empty, for 60 million. How are you planning to build 10 new schools? I mean, I'm not quite sure how you get up around to 750 million for renovations. You can scratch everything and build everything brand new, top, whatever I don't know what you imagine to have in there, but you can build whatever you want. The first issue is capacity. We proved the numbers are not reflecting reality. We cannot afford to close schools. Second, inflation is running high, and now, I don't know if you're aware, but we put 104% tariff on China, the inflation probably is going to be higher. So we need to be proactive instead of reactive. Thirdly, we did come up with alternative planning. You can sell land, make sure you get fair price for it. We have very dedicated, motivated, outstanding teachers. Supposedly we have the best teachers in New Jersey. Why don't we use them to actually bring in-house training for other teachers? I know amazing teachers. They would be great mentors to young teachers and bring that, whatever training the teachers get in-house and save money that way. Can actually take the full cost of policemen instead of sharing half. I wasn't planning to talk today, so I'm on a 6 now. Actually, one more thing. Actually, I remember what I wanted to say. So to operate Navasing, it costs around 170K per year, similar to Leonardo. And I'm assuming average salaries on admin is around 150K per year. So I'm not quite sure why do we need 26 admin? Where are the cuts coming from? Because that I would like to actually have in a normal job, you do have performance reviews. I'm assuming that's being done at admin? Yes? Okay, great. So, when you sit down and review your headcount, I'm assuming we're gonna get some counts there. Yes or no? Maybe? Are you planning to cut headcount at administration?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Right the top.
So, how many are you assuming to cut?
We don't know that
We
yet.
don't know. Okay. I would suggest, so Middletown used to have admin to student ratio around above 200. 202 10 years ago, 5 to 10 years ago. Now we are at 182. So I would suggest, so that implies we have more admin versus students. I would suggest bring that ratio back up. So we have less admin for the number of students we have. Lastly, about our demographics and stuff. So I moved to 308 Park Avenue 12 years ago. We were, out of the 14 households on that street, we were the only family with little kids. Now, the same street has over 50% of households with kids actually that are already in elementary school or middle school, or the little ones that they even entered the school district here. So I don't buy this whole, oh, our enrollment is gonna go down. Actually, I think it's gonna happen the opposite. Our enrollment is going up because of the babies that actually were born after COVID years, which we do. So I would just suggest, look at your spending, make smart decisions that actually, and plan ahead. Because like many schools may be overcrowded for different reasons, and we need to also take care of our special education kids. So. Do your job well, and if you need help, we are happy to help.
Hi, my name is Ashley. I am from One Forest Drive. I am a new mom and mom. I have 3 kids currently in the school district, one who is in daycare. So you're going to have another one going into the school district shortly. My oldest is in 5th grade. He actually spoke to you guys at the first public forum, which I was very, very proud of him to stand up and start fighting. But I kind of want to talk about my middle son. My middle son, his name is Nathan. He goes to Big U. He has ADHD. He has a developmental delay, and he is in a secluded class. He needs to be in a small class size, no bigger right now than 10 kids. So when we moved here back in 2021, we didn't know that you guys separate families when it comes to their needs. So imagine my surprise, 2 days before school starts, I get a letter from my oldest's school teacher at New Monmouth. Then I get one from a teacher in Bayview. Me thinking it's a mix-up, I try calling the school. No comments whatsoever. It goes to voicemail. I tried emailing. Emails always bounce back because you can't get a person. So you are leaving these pleading voicemails 2 days before school. We have fallen in love with the Bayview community. Go to Bayshore, and he talks about them every day. If you walk the schools, you have seen my son because he is probably the one kid in Bayview that all these kids know. Which is hilarious because he is in his own little world, and that kid can make anyone in this room smile. When I told him what was happening, his first thought was, what's happening to my friends? Not what's happening to him, not what's happening to his teachers, but what's happening to his friends. And it broke him. He started crying. And I go, nothing's in stone yet. We have to fight. And he is so scared for his friends. He doesn't know what's going to happen to them next year. He doesn't know if he's ever going to see them again because of where the middle schools are going to go. For these kids who are in special needs, there needs to be a better guide for them. These kids who are in Bayshore need to know last year what was going to happen, not today. They're very oriented in the fact that they have routines. you're going to disrupt their routines again. These fifth graders with special needs have already had their world shaken. The fourth graders have already had their world shaken when they had to start school virtually. Now, I don't know how many other special ed parents are out there, but virtual with special need kids, or the liquor store knew you by name. Okay? Because you couldn't work. I don't know any parent who had a special needs parent where both parents were working at the end of COVID, because you couldn't. I'm begging you, please do not make these kids' class sizes any bigger. They can't handle it yet. Eventually, I'm hoping they can. I'm hoping they build the skills through their teachers. But I also wanted to say one more thing that kind of mind-boggled me. When I was at back to school night, I went to go meet his therapy teachers. My son Nathan, he has speech therapy, physical therapy, and occupational therapy. To my surprise, I couldn't find one of his therapists at back to school night. To find out that they're all contracted. So what is the cost between the contracting programs versus actually hiring to have someone in-house? That much of a money saver. If anything, I would think it's more expensive. And then because you're having kids who cannot go to their zoned schools, they qualify for busing. That costs money. I know that there's kids that are closer to Harmony getting bused across 35 to go to Village. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. If it's a numbers thing, then, you know, maybe trying to take the schools and drawing a 2-mile radius around each elementary school might help you figure out where you can get numbers to pull on and save money. Just food for thought. But in the end, please, for these kids who need the therapies and everything like that, and need those small classrooms, don't mess with them. They're already freaking out as it is, and you know, they get very loud too when they're upset. So.
Would anyone else wish to make a public comment?
Hi, John Converse, I'm at 12 Maxon. My neighbor mentioned earlier that Maxon Elementary is eligible for grants from the Historic Preservation Trust. I just want to point out that the deadline for that is April 24th. So, if anyone needs any help with that, I'm willing to help.
Anyone else wish to make a public comment?
Scott McPherson, 32 Thompson Avenue, Leonardo. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but the parents who have spoken so eloquently about the issues that you're faced with got me to come up here and speak with you. You know, part of my job, a big part of my job, is risk management. And I understand that you, as a board, have to take that into consideration as well regarding the issues that you're faced with. So we understand and we acknowledge that. One of the big things that in family law that they talk about is the best interest of the child. Now, I don't practice in family law. I'm glad that I don't. But when you as a board, when you're talking about this, the issue that's on the agenda tonight, we want you to take into account the best interest of our children throughout all of Middletown. And to the parent that got up here from Swamp and Thompson, we hear you, we really do, and we want to engage with you, and we want parents from all across Middletown here with us. We also want to hear from the board. We want to know what you're thinking. So we ask that tonight, before you vote on the issues on the agenda, we want to know from our board members that were elected by this town, what are your thoughts regarding these issues? Because we haven't heard any of them.
Seeing no one else coming forward to make a public comment, I wish to close the public comment and move on with our agenda. Jess, Dr. O'Connell, would you like to say this?
Yes, I just want to thank everybody for coming out. Over the last several weeks, I agree with many of the speakers who have talked about the fact that we've come a long way. I think the conversations have been extremely productive. I'm just going to take the elephant out of the room right now. There is no plan for school closure for next year.
I'm glad that you're all clapping. This is much better.
So, we've heard you loud and clear. I think we're all recognizing of the fact that we all in this room are passionate and want what's best for our kids, collectively, from every corner of the district. And I think we have a captive audience. I think that's important. Mrs. Rooney, I think last meeting talked about silver linings. I'm a silver lining kind of girl myself. And I think this is an opportunity. I think it's an opportunity that doesn't come often. In general, just in organizations that are this big, it's a challenge to engage people and have them see something this big through. I came back to Middletown 3 years ago because I believed in Middletown. It was by choice, because I believe there's something unique and special here, and I really mean that. So I think it's a rare opportunity that we have here to continue to maintain what we have always known to be here, and I think that's really important. Two things I just want to let you know have already happened is we have partnered with a consultant that will help lead us through strategic planning. That will be a 4 to 5 month process where we will have full community engagement. Anybody can fluidly come in and out of those meetings, forums. They're not going to find anybody because they know everybody's busy, but they will lead that charge. And a lot of the work we've already started. I know we've had a survey going out, which we're appreciative that the parents had a hand in developing, and we've gotten the highest response rate we've ever had for a survey. And we were able to get that out to our community at large through partnership with the township. That's number one. The second piece of this, which is an arm of strategic planning, is getting good data. So we've partnered with a consultant who will do a large-scale efficiency study of the district. Not only looking at infrastructure, but looking at lines. We talked a lot about the sending zones and who goes where, and we're not oblivious to the fact that there are some odd send and receives across the district that certainly create inequities, as some parents spoke about, in not only numerics of class sizes, but also demographics. I mean, you name it, it exists. So I truly believe this is our one unique opportunity to get this right once and for all. And I'm happy to be a part of it. I'm happy that all of you want to be a part of it. So, I think we're committed to seeing this through on the whole. We do want to develop a steering committee kind of to anchor the ship, so to speak, with representatives from each school. But then everybody becomes part of the larger strategic planning process. So I know I've sat with many of you, and listen, we want you in the room with us, talking about these things and analyzing the data, and really looking at what's good for everybody. So, I wanted to put that out there tonight. I want to give you more than hope. I want to give you something tangible and know that, you have a partner in us in moving the needle on this, because this is our opportunity. We've seen it fail multiple times before, so we need to get it right because of our kids. So thank you.
I will make a motion to approve number 6, recommendation of the superintendent of schools, whereas this will increase the taxes by 1% over our tentative 4.88%, expenditures of $1.685 million, and a one-time incentive aid in the amount of $80,238.
Point of clarification, please. So what I'm not seeing here is, well, first of all, let me back up. Because I was not part of this meeting with the township that made this deal, and I don't think several other board members were either.
It was a shared service.
I'm sorry, I'm speaking now. And we were also not given an opportunity.
Like I said, shared service.
I'm getting to that.
Okay.
I would also like to make it known that we were not given an opportunity as a board to discuss this before tonight. Emergency meetings could have been called, which I made clear both to this board and also the mayor, and that was not taken up. The mayor could have come tonight, we could have actually had a session tonight, and that wasn't taken up. So now we're going to have this in public. What I want to know is several things. First of all, on March 18th, we had to come up with a temporary budget number to be sent to the county superintendent. We had not yet received an answer, is my understanding, when this deal was made last week. Have we received an answer from the county superintendent?
The county superintendent has told us that they will not approve our budget without committing to providing 2% of fund balance for our next year's budget. And we do have to commit to that in a letter to the Department of Education.
And what amount is that?
Approximately $760,000.
To be added on top of what we're already facing, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, and also part of this deal is what the mayor announced in a press conference to be 40 positions of teachers, if I'm understanding this correctly, teachers not in a classroom, administrative positions, and duplicate positions. Now, because I actually have a full-time job and can't just drop my work schedule and my responsibilities to my job when I am summoned in a cryptic message to go to City Hall on Thursday morning, not be told why, deal was made without our knowledge, that then and there, we find out that there's 40 administrative positions and duplicate positions, which to my knowledge, don't exist. So I would like to know, before any vote is taken, what those positions are. It is that part of those positions are actually staff, qualified staff that reach our students who are struggling every single day. It's also other staff that make this district run. I have a problem with that. I had a problem with it since day one. I have a problem with the fact that we are now being forced into a position to now accept 5.88, which I am going to say, and I don't know what any other board member feels about this, but is going to lead us right to the same position we are today 1 year from now. And it will render a very meaningful process that should have finished 5 years ago, like I said on March 8th. We have done our kids a disservice. Because because it wasn't sexy enough to get on Fox News. And I understand that the mayor, as he tried to tell us, is trying to help. He could have helped on March 18th. He could have helped on March 19th. He could have come and he could have talked to us as elected officials to figure this out. But instead, we get backed into a corner where we balk and know that this is not a good deal. We look like the bad guys. When all we are trying to do is save this district, and all I'm trying to do is save the town that I love.
I'd like to move to amend the proposed levy to go up to 10.1. There's already a motion on the floor, Joe. But what did you want to do? I'm sorry.
It's been moved, but no one's been seconded. So it needs to be seconded and then you motion.
I'm sorry.
I'll second.
Wait, I have discussion.
We did discussion.
On this, yeah.
Okay, Joe, you want to make a motion also?
Yes.
Which is?
I'd like to move to amend the proposed levy to go up to 10.1%.
We have two motions. We're going to take a discussion now. Joe?
I want to discuss the motion that's on the agenda. I was all for it. I thought it would help us. But being that we have not gotten our tentative budget approved and we need more funds, I don't see where that's feasible right now. I think we have to explore other options. But I do have to say, I was really disappointed tonight that we did not have a closed session because we have not discussed as a board any of this budget stuff. And in my 23 years, I've never seen anything like that. I've never been a part. So I'm telling you, I truly feel I was all for the 5.88. Then we get told last night or the night before that the state is saying we need more money. 5.88 isn't going to help us. So I can't go through with a yes vote on that. And I do think that
So you want to raise taxes more, you're saying?
I think that this is what I think. I think we have to have a resolution into the state by the 14th on whether or not we can take advantage of this one-time deal. So I would like to say we propose the 10.1 so that we have an opportunity to take advantage of any kind of an increase other than what we have. And that this board seriously start meeting together as a board and come up with a budget. But I really have never seen us not discuss the budget before.
So you...
I think we give her the resolution. She doesn't have to go to 10.1%. She has the opportunity to work out a budget that's going to help us with the numbers that the state is telling us we now have to add in, and anything else that could help us get up to adequacy.
So now let me ask everybody a question. Where's the cost savings going to be? Whether you raise it 5.88, 6.88, or 10.1, where is the cost savings year over year going to come in? Well, that's what I'm telling everybody, is just by raising taxes is always going to be a Band-Aid. Taxation, I'm speaking right now, 1 second. Taxation is great as a word, but taxation on the whole entire district is not the proper thing to do in excess.
Please
this meeting cannot be productive if everyone's yelling out from the audience.
Like I'm asking administration as well, what is our way to get down our cost? Because as everybody spoke eloquently, which we listened to, yes, we understand what everyone's saying. If you don't cut down your cost, you're always going to have that cost there. So if it's 10.1%, that's about $16.5 million. That only fills last year's gap. So now next year, you're going to be in this problem again with either one of these problems.
If we had actually taxed in the way that we should have and gone up to the cap of 2% every year, we would not have left an accumulated bank cap of approximately $60 to $80 million on the table.
It's actually $90 million.
To your base going forward to be able to then have costs. Then you have a strategic planning process that looks and answers the question you're saying. What efficiencies, what redundancies do we have? You don't do that by closing 3 schools in 2 months.
Hey, Deb, I just had a question for you. Because I believe it was last meeting you said, stop kicking the can down the road. This is necessary to close these schools.
I never said it was necessary to close the schools. That was not my quote. What I said was leading the town to the fact that 5 years ago is when we dropped the ball and not actually finished the strategic planning process then. Because what it had given us would have been time in maybe 3 years. If we had to have gotten to this painful point, we would have had 3 years to plan.
So you weren't for closing the schools?
I was for a temporary budget number.
No, I asked you for closing the schools. When Dr. Rapone presented,
I was for a temporary budget number to get us to where we are now to be able to do this.
so we have a motion on the floor to approve 5.88% total with the $1,685,000 and the $80,000 incentive aid. And there was a motion to amend it, which was seconded also.
Up to 10.1 if needed.
Okay, so
That's a secondary motion, that's very motion.
So we're gonna vote for a 10.1% increase right now.
Temporary.
If needed.
If
Needed.
Not, what
Just
is
to
needed?
clarify, I want to clarify what the 10.1 means. The 10.1 means that that's the max we can take advantage of. We do not have to eventually, in the end, use all 10.1. But if we don't approve the 10.1, we can't utilize it. So that's all we're voting on right now.
So you want to vote for a 10.1% increase, possibly? Excuse me, everybody wants to hear us talk, we want to talk right now, okay? So the 5.88%,
Guys, we can't hear up here.
if everybody can be respectful, because we listened to everything everyone had to say in every forum, and we actually came back to the table to find a resolution.
Can I speak, please?
Okay, so,
Can I speak?
excuse me? Sure, you can speak, Mark.
I had no knowledge of this budget until Amy and Jess spent several hours sitting down with me and several other groups of board members to try to come up with some solutions that were not knee-jerk reactions. And when I found out that a lot of this budget was done, I guess in secrecy, because I found out from members of the finance committee that it wasn't even discussed in finance. I'm just learning this whole process, and I'm hoping going forward that we are all included in this, because I think when you get 9 heads together that also listen to the community and are in the community and hear what they want, we have a better chance of getting this done in a more thoughtful process so that it doesn't come to this again. And I'm not for a 10.1% increase. I own a business in town, so I pay commercial property tax and residential property tax. But I also saw the numbers and how this school district has been decimated over the last 5 years for somebody's piggy bank. I don't know whose, if it's the township's piggy bank or whatever. But we need to
The
get
last
this-
5 years?
Well, I'm speaking.
The
We need to
last
get
5
these-
years, Mark?
Excuse me. We need to get this budget back in order. If we need to do the 10.1% to get there, I'm in favor of that.
I'd like to speak now and ask you a question, Mark. On February 26th, you sent an email about future planning, future vision and budgetary planning, thanking Dr. Alphone for her thoughtful budget and the closure of schools which was necessary. Was that not you who really wanted
It
this?
sure was, Frank, but let's talk about that.
I'm speaking now. The whole reason why we are here right now is because of the quorum of this board wanted this. And the people who are speaking out right now, Mark, should be speaking at you because you're the biggest advocate for this, my friend. You wrote the email on February 26th, and I hope people look for that.
That's fine, and I'll take ownership of that. I sure did. And then when I got into it, and I was in a facilities committee meeting, and Miss Doherty shared some bids, and I started looking at the bids and seeing campaign donations, I started getting. I immediately called Carol, and I said, I have a real problem. What does that have to do with anything? Why don't you look at the shared services committee and the people that are on that and campaign donations with some of the bids that came in?
I'm going to be respectful to everybody. We want to speak here and come to our resolution on the board. If everybody can please stop just speaking more speaking, just so we can get this through, okay? Okay, so
The motion to amend has been moved and seconded, so that's before the board right now.
and this board is okay with the up to 10.1%?
Well, Frank, I have questions about that. Can I, I'm not interrupting you, man. I don't know if Dr. Alphone can explain, can you explain this news we got about not being approved because of that dollar amount, and what is that dollar amount?
Sure, so you can have up to 2% in your fund balance, which is basically your savings, right? It's whatever drops down after you paid out all your expenditures for the year. We last year used a piece of that fund balance to prop up our budget, knowing full well that it was going to drop us below the 2%. The state did approve it, but we were not able, for all the reasons that we've already spoken about, not able to recoup that money to a place of 2%. So the state is at this point requiring us to have a plan to recoup and put back our fund balance at 2%. So that is where the 2% on our budget is about $3.6 million, and the fund balance that we need to generate to get back to that 3.6 is that 762,000 and change figure. That was told to us yesterday. They're willing to take a letter written by myself and Mrs. Doherty committing to that in our budget for next school year. So that at the end of the year, when we paid out all our expenditures, we would have that to drop down into the fund balance.
Thank you. And then just follow-up question. So that $762,000, that's obviously not the gap between 5.88% tax rate
Correct.
and 1%, right?
We did not account.
That would equate to about a 6.15 here. It's about $1.65 million per 1%.
So procedurally then, is the question really all or nothing 5.88 or 10.1, or is there a dollar
Remember,
value?
you're only voting for the ability to go up to 10.1. You are not voting for the actual tax increase at this moment. That would come on April 30th when our final budget gets approved. But if this is on the table and the board is debating that, by not doing it, you're limiting yourself into not being able to go up to that amount if the board chooses to do so. So you get this one moment because we have to submit that application on April 14th with a resolution stating what the board has committed to as the max. That doesn't mean you have to use the max. And that's what, people are alluding to, just to clarify for everybody.
So if we voted for 5.88%, what stops, what comes next in terms of how you make up the 762,000?
Well, that would be through either raising more revenue, which the tax increase could potentially do, or making more cuts, which obviously, listen, I think it would be an egregious thing to decimate this district instructionally for our kids. Like, I I just can't in good faith think of a world where that's okay, because if we are putting children first, that can't happen. So it would be very challenging, I think, to be able to find at this point another $760,000 to be able to do that, because in order to have our budget approved, we have to commit to that. And that is 100% from the state, we have to put it in writing. So that wasn't accounted for when we started to figure out our initial budget figures, and I know many of you have asked, what are we cutting, where? It's hard for us right now because it's a moving target. So I have lists upon lists upon lists upon scenarios, and all we do is go back and revisit them. I mean, my admin team can tell you every day, because we're like, what can we consolidate, or what can we create a better efficiency for that doesn't impact our classrooms? But we are in the territory of it could impact our classrooms, and that to me is not something that I'm okay with.
Can I ask a question, please? I want to ask this to Amy. Going to the 10.1 or below the 10.1, what kind of benefits do we see from that?
I'm sorry, you said going below the 10.1?
No, going to the 10.1 or somewhere between where we are and let's say the 10.1, because we don't know where we're going. We're just giving you the rights to go up to there if you had to. What benefits does it do for the district?
Well, when you raise your tax levy, that is recurring revenue that you'll have every year. So instead of putting revenue in that's only available for 1 year, that you have to recreate the next year, that will be there in your base to build upon for subsequent years, which would be a huge benefit, because the last few years we have had quite a bit of revenue that was one-shot revenue, where it would not come back the next year, and we would have to dig out of that hole before we could start doing the budget. So that would be a huge benefit to the district, to have revenue that would actually be there for subsequent years.
Do you have an idea of what kind of revenue it is as far as?
Yeah, we projected today, if we went to the 10.1, because we were kind of vetting this out, we've had questions, obviously, and we're trying to do our due diligence in giving people good information. If you look at how we were planning on creating efficiencies, consolidating some positions, doing that type of thing without impact to the classroom, we were looking at potentially having an overage next year of about $2.5 million, which is important, because that allows us to save money and to drop things down into our fund balance and our capital reserves. We also get the incentive aid from the 10.1, which is another important piece. Even though we should not use that towards our operating budget, that has to drop down into some type of reserve as well. So there are over and above benefits.
Don't we all also get an additional $400,000?
That's the money I was referring to, but that, remember, is dependent upon the rate that you choose to tax at, so it's proportional. So that is why when you see on the agenda the 5.88, that I believe it was 80,000 coincides with that. Obviously, the more you use, the most we could get for that incentive aid is the 414, and I think there's a little bit more, like 200, 300, something like that. But we did that calculation today just to see, in case we did get a question tonight, what that would look like in practice. And that's about where we stand financially with that. And then obviously anything lower than that dwindles down that excess 2.5 that we would have if we kept everything in line with the reductions and the things that we were planning on making, but not willing to also sacrifice the important things in the district either.
Can you explain to us what happens if we just take the 5.88?
Well, that remains to be seen, because
next year.
Well, I mean, obviously, we can't rectify our budget at the 5.88 without other things happening, which is where the land sale and the other pieces came into play. So obviously, the 10.1 would circumvent the need for particularly the land sale, or, a full cost sharing with the cost savings on the officers. So we're looking, that tax increase would replace those other things in essence. So without them, we have to do something. Because I do not think it's proper, and I don't think anybody up here or anybody in the audience thinks that we should be cutting 120 people and decimating education for our kids. I don't think that's where anybody up here or out there wants to be.
I have a question.
I have a question.
The public comments over. The board's discussing. No, public comments over. The board is discussing the motion to amend up to 10.1%. Sir, you're out of order, sir. The board is discussing. There was an hour of public comment. Sir, you're out of order.
I'll answer the question right after we finish here. I will.
I have a question, Amy. So you guys, who came up with the 5.88 that is on a resolution tonight? If the administration is now saying they want to go to 10.1, I'm just confused. Like, where did the 5.88 come from? And are you guys not saying that that's what your recommendation is anymore?
We were told it was 5.88
Told by who?
in our shared services meeting. Amy and I sat there and we were told, because we said we were putting 7.37 on the agenda. I have no idea.
That's correct.
Who said 5.88?
So, I'm sorry, can I just clarify? Can I just get some clarification? So, I guess, was it back, I'm not accusing Amy, I'm just trying to clarify, but was that with the back end of, if we accepted the 600 and we accepted the sale at 2 million, that's where those numbers came, that the budget made sense then?
When I was at the shared services meeting, this is what was laid out to us by the mayor and the others who were there.
Sorry. So my question is, at the 5.88, are we covering the new information we got yesterday that the state won't approve our 4.8? Are they going to approve us at 5.88? Well, we don't know yet.
We could, as Dr. Alcone already explained, that was not factored into that original scenario, so we would have to find a way to either, you would have to cut more expenses, you'd have to eliminate more things from the budget to make that up in order to create that 762,000. There's no, without raising revenue, that's what you would have to do. You would have to cut more expenses out of your budget.
Okay, so what is the percentage increase in taxes that covers that $762,000?
It's about 0.48%, just figure out real quick.
I'm sorry, what I can't
It's
hear.
about 0.46%.
Another 0.46% would cover.
There's $1.65 million per each percent, approximately. So it's approximately 0.45, whatever.
Tony and Fred have it all figured out.
Approximately 4.8%. 0.48%.
Correct.
So 5.88 plus another, what?
0.48%.
Correct.
So, I'm sorry, just clarify, so 6.35 would put that money in to cover our fund balance? Or would our fund balance then go up?
That would be the amount that would be increased to add $762,000 to the budget.
Okay, and at 6.35, is that also an increase in the incentive payment from 5.88? Does every increment we go up give us more of an incentive payment?
It's like, yes.
Yep, but we don't know how much.
I mean, it's roughly 5% of whatever you go up in the tax, so I mean, it's not exactly, roughly 5% of that 762, so.
Okay, so are we voting on
The motion to amend to 10.4.
We all know that.
You have to vote on the motion to amend the original motion up to 10.1%. So discussion is currently open. So
No other motions can be taken.
no, you have to resolve that one. So if you
Okay.
have a different proposal, you could discuss that during the debate on this motion. And then you could decide whether you want to approve the up to 10.1 or go with some alternative. So if this one is voted down, then you can make another motion to amend it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, before you do, wait a minute, you're talking about this motion of up to 10, right? That means then the other motion is off the table. The land and 5.88.
Just to clarify, Lenore.
Say what?
The original motion's on the table, and Mr. Fitzgerald made a motion to amend it. So now you're debating the motion to amend it. If that passes, you're then voting on the original motion as amended up to 10.1%.
That includes
The land and the class,
No, it doesn't. So what we're approving today is just the tax. It's just the tax itself.
But that was in the first motion.
Wait, Leonora, this motion that we have right now does not include land at all. It's just what we have, the 4.88 plus 1%.
If I could just clarify, Mrs. Caminiti, this motion that is on the agenda is to authorize me to submit an application to the NJDOE
For 1%.
to increase our tax levy by 1% to 5.88 and qualify for the aid that is related to that. That's all it does. It just authorizes me to put an application into the DOE to increase our tax levy to 5.88.
Right, but I think I can add to her, to answer her question. If we do that, then we would have to do other things that would have to be approved on the April 30th agenda to be able to meet our operating expenses.
Correct.
So that's where the land and the police officer contract comes into play. So that is contingent with, I guess, the 5.88.
And then after we get the response back from the state on this application, however it gets put in, if it's approved, then the next step, besides what Dr. Alphone just said, is we would have to introduce our final budget that would reflect whatever changes that we're making to the tentative budget. And then that is what we present at our public hearing, and then that is what the board has to vote on April 30th.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any more discussion?
Yeah, so, and I want to kind of go through, I think, how we got here. So originally, we were looking at a 7.3 levy. And that number, it's not just like we're just throwing spaghetti at the wall, right? And, trying to figure out, hey, it's 5.8, it's 7.3. Those numbers actually mean something, right? And we're trying to play catch up here to actually what the number that we're trying to get to. And when going through this kind of plan, we were looking at that actual, brass tacks number. And that brass tacks number is around 11.6 million, right? That's what we're looking at. We're looking at that number. At that time, I think I called up Mr. Cohen on Friday, and we talked about the Class 3 officers and such. I was actually going to try to reach out to the mayor and talk about possibly him taking over, giving us a temporary reprieve on those Class 3 officers. During that time, I had a good discussion with the mayor, and we kind of brought up different things, and he agreed at that point, if we put together a good plan, he would take over, half the Class 3s. At that point, there was no discussion about land and, what was going to happen going forward. He agreed, he said, if you come up with a good plan, that's what was going to happen. So that 7.3, as we discussed, I told them, I said, we're trying to get down to the 6.3 number. That's the overall number that we're trying to get to, but the actual dollar amount was 11.6. So if he threw in the 800 or the 600,000 for the officers, then we can walk that number down. So we get it to 6.9 and eventually do some more cuts and get us to 6.3 where we all agreed. Then I wake up, or Wednesday I'm having dinner, and then I see an email from Mr. Capone saying that we're going to go see the mayor the next day, and the 5.88 came about. The 5.88 puts us right back where we are right now. It prolongs it. It doesn't give us a strategic plan. When we talk about, strategic plans, as Ms. Abbott said, we want to get to that. We need to get up to a place where we're financially, in a financial trajectory way where we hit the points of administration, being up on contract, where we hit the teacher contracts being up, the bonds that are hitting up in 27, 28. And that's what we need to get to financial health, right? Because we have to have enough money to get there. The 5.88 gets us to next year, and we don't even get to that point, right? We're collapsing before that. And it just gets worse and worse from there, right? Because next year, we're not just talking about Navasink and Leonardo. We're bringing up, River Plaza and Fairview and everything else, and then we just keep collapsing. I don't think collapsing these schools, and judging by the numbers, they didn't work either, it doesn't get us to where we need to be financially. So, unfortunately, I don't like raising taxes, and I'll be the first one to say that, no, I don't want to do that, but this is the future for our kids,
Amy, correct me, what is our operating budget this year versus last?
You mean the proposed budget or our current budget?
The proposed, correct. You proposed a budget of $197 million.
Our proposed budget is $187 million.
No, 197.
No, the tentative budget that we approved is $187 million.
Okay, so what's our proposed budget for next year?
That is the proposed budget.
187.
That is
Where's
the
the
tentative budget that we approved.
Where did the $197 million come from?
Well, that was before we were going through all the cuts that had to come into play, and it included the school consolidation savings
I
as
see,
well.
you missed my point.
Okay.
Last year, we were at, 2 years ago, we were at 180, we went up 1% in that budget, correct? Last year.
I don't, Mr. Capone, I don't
1.2,
have all those numbers in
1.3,
front of me, so
approximately.
I'll take your word.
This year, we were told it's going up $17 million.
I don't have all these budgets lined up in front of me. I know that our tentative budget was $187 million for this year.
But I will say, our operating expenses were projected at about $197 million. And then in that budget that we submitted as the tentative budget included the consolidation plan, which was approximately $4 million, and then another $6 million for reductions we were making. So when you look at our operating costs, we were projected to be at about $197 million. We got it down to the number that Amy has just, or Mrs. Doherty just said, because of those things we were doing as part of the tentative budget. Obviously, we have to take that now and reconfigure that because the consolidation, isn't happening and there's other things on the table for how to rectify that $10 million gap that we were left with after all the other pieces came into play. Does that clarify?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Just want to make sure that that's what I was seeing.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any more discussion? Amy, roll call.
What's the motion right now?
This is for the amended.
Up to 10.4.
Correct.
So this is for the amended motion.
This is just to amend the motion.
This is to amend the motion. So not the actual motion.
No,
This
if
is not
this
the-
passes, you will then have to vote on the
Amended.
motion as amended.
Okay.
Please say that again.
This is just for the up to 10.1%?
This is to amend the motion to up to 10.1. If this passes, you then have to vote on the resolution as amended.
Mrs. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Tull,
This is to have a motion on the table
This is to amend the motion that's on the agenda to reflect an increase of 10.1% versus.
Up to. And then that will have its own discussion.
That'll have its own vote.
Right. We just discussed.
We just discussed it. Right, and then you'll vote for the motion.
Yes.
So
Right.
this is just amendment.
Then yes.
Mr. Safarowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Skolasky? Yes. Mrs. Minuis?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Caminiti?
Yes.
Mrs. Tobacco? Yes. Mr. Capone?
Up to 10.1%.
No, just
It was said yes.
Now before the board is the actual motion that's on the agenda, but it's amended to reflect up to 10.
So I don't know if there's any discussion there.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gary wants to
I have questions, just, so now with this on the table, Dr. Fallon, you mentioned it earlier, could you just, what's the procedure for, was a deadline for the resolution or something that's different from our budget deadline?
Yes, the resolution for the deadline is April 14th, which is why we're voting on this tonight, because Mrs. Doherty has to submit the application in order for us to be able to even consider utilizing that 10.1% in our budget, which again will be reflected, whatever number the board eventually lands on for the tax increase will be reflected in our final budget at the April 30th board meeting, where we will outline the reductions and the tax increase and all the specifics of the budget. So we have quite a bit of work to do between, tonight and then. But that's this is just allowing us to utilize as much as we can in formulating the final version of our budget.
And can I also add the board will be included in this process?
Yes.
Thank you.
Of course.
Is that, so say this were to pass tonight, and then Ms. Doherty can submit the application to let us talk about how far we want to go to cover what we need to cover.
Yes, and,
So-
certainly we'll entertain discussion with the board in regards to, where we all feel comfortable, or where they all feel comfortable landing in regards to that tax increase and the reductions that would have to offset, potentially not going to that 10.1%.
So we would have ongoing conversations then about truly, balancing all these interests and everything, about what number actually gets us to what we need.
Correct, yes.
Or just,
Correct.
I think we can all agree that if this process has shown us anything, it's that we're picking among, trying to find the least horrible of a lot of horrible
Correct,
options.
yes.
And
We'll have
we're-
lots of-
and we're- I think a lot of us have been angling for is something that gets us not only the money to get us where we need to have some breathing room to do this, but more importantly, the time and the process to think it through the right way. And I don't know that just saying, of course, 10 point, whatever the highest number is, of course, it's gonna give us more money. It's gonna, but I don't, as I sit here today, I don't like the idea that this, and maybe I misunderstood it, but it sounds like we're talking about raising taxes as high as we can and forgetting about that we shouldn't be paying the full cost of the class 3s in the first place. Still be part of the conversation, I think. Yes.
Yeah, I think that there are many things that are still up for discussion and kind of outliers. I know the property has been up for discussion and potentially getting a second appraisal. Like, there's a lot of other things that have been brought to our attention. So I think that between now and the time when our finalized budget is due, there's a lot of discussion that needs to be had about all these pieces and how they fit together to be responsible to the taxpayer, pay attention to what our kids need, and give us breathing room to be able to put together a plan that really works and is viable for the long term, not something very short term.
And just to add on to what Gary is saying, I think just because we're saying we're proposing to go up to 10.1%, we still need to make the cuts that we said. I still stand by what I said in the beginning about cutting the fat. We really need to look at it and cut it as much as possible. But also on top of that, shared services really need to work on the mayor as well and make sure or see if he can help with, still paying for, our officers.
We need to take the land off the table. We can't sell when we're desperate to get by. It doesn't work.
And just to add on to Ms. Caminetti, I think leasing the land is the way to go. So I would rather not sell the land, I'd rather lease it if we could, our different land that we have.
How does leasing help our budget?
It's reoccurring revenue.
How much?
It's $1,000 a month, like what's the recurring revenue versus $2 million?
It's better than zero.
It's a coach, it's a stipend.
$10,000 a year would have to go for 20 years to get that $2 million back. I'm not saying to sell it or not sell it, I'm just saying leasing is not like money generated for a district. We're educated, we're not real estate.
No, I understand that, but we have money, we have real estate just sitting there, not doing anything. I mean, if it's making $500, 10 cents, it doesn't matter, we're still making
So
money.
we want more development here, we want less development here. I would definitely say we
It
want
has
less.
nothing to do with the development. It has to do with if
Revenue for the school board.
Like, for instance, with the Kings Highway, right, where there's a farm that actually is looking to lease that. They've been looking to lease that for a while. We can lease it to them.
To a farm, I know nothing about it, could you tell me about it?
Yeah, it's what the mayor told us. He said there was a farm across from the other side. And
I would, if that is a possibility, I'd recommend not talking about it.
All right, we're gonna move on now to the next. So we're gonna, Amy, roll call?
Okay, roll call for the application for the additional expenditures as amended. Mrs. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Tull?
Yes.
Mr. Sokorowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Gillespie?
Yes.
Mrs. Menuez?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Caminiti?
Yes.
Mrs. Tobacco? I know this isn't going to be popular, but I cannot go on the record in good conscience voting to go up to 10.1. Listen, you guys, we've heard you. We have heard you at the forums. We have listened, and you have asked for transparency. You've asked for what our thoughts are. And then every time I go to say something, you guys say something over me. And I'm disinterested. I actually had eye surgery, and that's why I haven't been looking over there. But thank you for calling that out. That's great, but can I continue? HIPAA? I have supported our superintendent's proposal from the beginning. I thought that she proposed a plan that was fiscally responsible. I thought it protected our teachers. I did not want to see our education get decimated, the quality of our education get decimated. I did not want to see our kids be hurt. I understand the need for time for transitioning. And I think that we have had some decent proposals and we've come to some kind of a middle ground. I think there's still room to come to a middle ground with our tax base, but I also have to consider that I represent the entire town of Middletown, not just the parents who are in this room tonight. And the senior citizens count too, and people who have written to us and advocated and begged us not to go up to 10.1. With that being said, I cannot in good conscience, even though my vote at this point doesn't matter, the motion will pass. My vote doesn't matter, but I will make a statement that I will not support for this town being on the record that I would ever go up to 10.1% in this economy and with people struggling. That is my vote. Thank you. Mr. Capone.
I will echo those sentiments, and I will be a no up to 10.1%. I said no.
That motion carries.
Motion carries.
Board members, there's one more motion, the one we added to the agenda.
I got it. Motion number 7, business office consent agenda, award of stop loss carrier for medical and prescription drug plans. Motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
You want to do a roll call, Amy, or all in favor?
We don't need, okay, we'll do roll call. Mrs. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Tull?
Yes.
Mr. Safarowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Scholastic? Yes. Mrs. Minies?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mrs. Caminiti?
Yes.
Mrs. Tobacco?
Yes.
Mr. Capone?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Old business, is there any old business to discuss? New business, any new business to discuss? Alrighty, I wish to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Discussion, all in favor? Aye, opposed, abstentions?